Well, good morning, everyone. This is the Sound and Light Show portion of the forum. I would just want to thank Peter for that introduction and for spearheading this partnership with us. Obviously, thank Mayor Daley for chairing this initiative and giving us the benefit of decades of experience and leadership in the global arena. And thank you to USC and the President. Could not have a better place to start and launch this initiative. Obviously, this forum could not be more timely. For the past 3 years, Brookings has been boringly consistent about the economic challenges facing our country. At the most basic level, we need more jobs, 11.4 million by one estimate, to recover the jobs we lost during the downturn and keep pace with population growth and labor market dynamics. Beyond pure job growth, we need better jobs to grow wages and incomes for middle-class workers and reverse the troubling decades-long rise in inequality. There's no easy way to achieve those twin goals, but one thing is clear. We need to purposefully restructure the American economy from one focused inward and characterized by excessive consumption and debt to one globally engaged and driven by production and innovation. I'm going to make 3 points today. First, in the aftermath of the Great Recession, the U.S. must pursue a different growth model, a next economy that is driven by exports and global engagement, powered by low carbon and advanced energy, fueled by innovation, both ideas and, yes, manufacturing, and rich with opportunity. This is a vision where we export more, we waste less, we innovate in what matters, we produce and deploy more of what we invent, and we ensure that we build an economy that actually works for working families. Second, the next economy will be largely metropolitan in form and in function. Our major metros already generate more than 3/4 of GDP, concentrate the production of advanced goods and services that we sell abroad, and are the logistics hub of the global trading system. As you will see, LA's export profile, what you trade, who you trade with, is highly distinct. And finally, metros are driving innovation in practice, in policy, in the formation of global trade links. LA is part of this innovative wave, and you're actually leading a group of metros that are determined to build their export economies from the bottom up, innovating locally, advocating nationally, networking globally. So let me begin by offering this vision of the next American economy. Visualize an economy where more firms in more sectors trade more goods and services seamlessly with the world, particularly with nations that are rapidly urbanizing and industrializing. Why exports? Because we've crossed an economic Rubicon. Together, Brazil, India, and China, the BRICS, accounted for about 1/5 of global GDP in 2009, surpassing the United States for the first time. By 2015, the BRICS share will grow to more than 25%. As Mayor Daley said, the rise of the BRICS reflects the rise of cities and metros. For the first time in recorded history, more than half of the world's population lives in cities and metropolitan areas. By 2030, that share will surpass 60%. Rising nations and the rapidly growing metros now power the world economy and drive global demand. And the locus of economic power is shifting. The top 30 metro performers today are almost exclusively located in Asia and Latin America. The 30 worst metro performers are nearly all located in Europe, North America, and earthquake-ravaged Japan. The United States needs to reorient our economy to take advantage of this new demand. In 2010, exports made up only 13% of our GDP, compared to 30% in China, 29% in Canada, and higher levels in India, Japan, and the entire European Union. The movement of freight in the United States is compromised, undermined by transport networks that are clogged and congested, and an infrastructure, frankly, that is third class. And culturally, Americans don't get out much. Only 28% of our population actually had a passport. Now, can we get back into the export game? We think the answer is yes. We are having a mini export renaissance in the United States. Export sales grew by more than 11% in 2010 in real terms, the fastest growth logged since 1997. Incredibly, Exports were responsible for 46% of GDP growth between 2009 and 2011. For all the talk of a post-industrial economy, the United States remains a manufacturing powerhouse, exporting $944 billion in manufactured goods in 2010. This makes us the third largest manufacturing exporter in the world, behind China and Germany. We still manufacture a range of advanced goods that the rest of the world wants, including aircraft, spacecraft, electrical machinery, precision surgical instruments, and high-quality pharmaceutical products. To paraphrase the old motto for Trenton, what the United States makes, the world takes. But this is not just about the advanced manufacturing of high-value goods. America is the #1 exporter of private services in the world, exporting $518 billion in services in 2010, which gave us a $160 billion trade surplus in services. In 2010, U.S. exports of private services represented 14% of global service exports, more than double the share of Germany, the second-ranking country. Our potential for exports is hidden in plain sight, and President Obama's 2010 challenge to double exports in 5 years was exactly the kind of ambitious, far-reaching goal we need post-recession. Now, low carbon is the second hallmark of the next United States economy. Let's imagine a world where America is the vanguard of the clean, green industrial revolution. Everything is changing. The energy we use, the infrastructure we build, the homes we live in, the products we buy are all shifting from models that are outmoded to systems that are smarter, faster, more technologically enabled, and more environmentally sound. Our competitors, China, Germany, Brazil, have embraced the clean economy, creating markets, growing jobs, and stimulating investment. Can we even play in the low-carbon revolution? Our research shows that we already have a strong base of 2.7 million clean economy jobs in sectors ranging from renewable energy to pollution reduction. Let's put that number in perspective. The clean economy is nearly twice the size of the biosciences field, 60% of the 4.8 million strong IT sector. And as you can tell, it has more jobs than fossil fuel-related industries. For our purposes today, the clean economy is also an export powerhouse. In 2009, clean economy establishments exported almost $54 billion. Significantly, clean economy establishments are twice as export-intensive as the national economy, a solid platform to serve the demand for sustainable growth as rising nations continue to urbanize. Well, that leads naturally to a discussion of innovation. We must be the world's innovation nation, a hothouse of invention, and the platform for advanced production. Over the past 2 decades, the discussion of innovation has narrowed in this country, positioning it as something only conducted in the ivory tower or among exceptional entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs. We forgot something early generations intuitively understood: the inextricable link and virtuous cycle between innovation and manufacturing. While only about 9% of all U.S. jobs are in manufacturing, about 35% of all engineers work in that super sector. Although the manufacturing sector comprises only 11% of GDP, manufacturers account for 68% of the spending on R&D that is performed by companies in the United States. And manufacturing is responsible for 90% of all patents in this country. Can the United States seize the future and realize our potential as an innovation nation? We now place just 45th out of 93 countries in the share that science and engineering degrees make up of bachelor's degrees. Going forward, we will innovate less if we do not fully embrace science and technology. The U.S. also lags on the conversion of innovation into homegrown production. We have gone from running a trade surplus in advanced technology products to running a trade deficit over the past decade. Going forward, we will innovate less if we do not produce more. We must make things again. It is time to rediscover our innovation mojo in our vocational and tech schools, in our research labs, on our factory floors, in the tradable goods and service sectors that drive wealth creation and sustainable growth. And finally, the next economy has the potential to be opportunity rich. Research shows that firms in export-intense industries pay workers more and are more likely to provide health and retirement benefits. Yet building the next economy will require the United States to get real smart, real fast. Over the next several decades, African Americans and Hispanics will grow from about 25% to nearly 40% of the working age population. Yet the rates of educational attainment are lowest among those fast-growing groups. In 2009, only a third of Hispanics and 47% of African Americans had completed an associate's degree or higher, contrasting sharply with the rates for whites and Asians. In the decades ahead, upgrading the education and skills of our diverse workforce is no longer just a matter of fairness and social equity. It is an issue of national competitiveness. It is an issue of national security. So here is my second proposition. This next economy will largely be metropolitan in form and in function. This is the real heart of the American economy. 100 metro areas that, after decades of growth, take up only 12% of our land mass, but harbor 2/3 of our population and generate 3/4 of our GDP. This is a new economic geography here and in the world, enveloping cities and suburbs, exurbs, and rural towns, and they pack a powerful punch. Metro areas generate the majority of GDP in 47 of our 50 states, including such quote-unquote rural states as Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Arkansas. On exports, the top 100 metros dominate. In 2010, they produced an estimated 65% of U.S. exports, including 75% of service exports and 63% of manufactured goods that are sold abroad. Given their edge in sectors like chemicals, consulting, and computers, the top 100 metros are on the front lines of commerce with Brazil, India, and China. They drive exports for another good reason. They are logistical hubs, concentrating the movement of people and goods by air, rail, and sea. Now, these economies, of course, do not exist in the aggregate. They have distinctive starting points and distinctive assets, attributes, and advantages. Every U.S. metro presents a different economic face to the world. Now, our research digs deep to unveil the export and innovation profile of each of the top 100 metros. Here you see our supersized export performers, LA and New York, which both exported nearly $80 billion in 2010. Chicago and Houston topped $48 billion that year. Top 10 metro exporters include Dallas, San Francisco, Seattle, Philadelphia, Boston, and Detroit. All exceeded $26 billion in exports. Taken together, these 10 metros account for almost 30% of U.S. exports. This is not just about the large, diversified economies. These 10 metropolitan areas saw the fastest manufacturing-driven export growth, all having more than 88% of their 2009-2010 export expansion coming from goods production. And a completely different set of metros, mostly in the Northeast, are implicated by the rise in education exports that the President talked about. Boston leads with education, providing nearly 5% of their total exports. The export economy, unlike the consumption economy, is highly differentiated. A Walmart outside LA is the same as a Walmart outside Vegas. Same design, same footprint, same goods. A housing subdivision outside of Denver, frankly, is the same as one outside Detroit. But what makes this metropolis special is different from what drives Las Vegas or Denver or Detroit. Let's take a quick trip to explore and experience what makes you a truly global metropolis. You are the largest metro exporter in our country, and your export intensity is above the top 100 metro average, which is remarkable for a place this size. Your export economy is more service-oriented than the national average, driven by royalties, travel and tourism, and business and professional services. Now, that's not surprising. Ask anyone what they think LA produces, and Hollywood is the first thing that comes to mind. In 2010, royalties were a $12.4 billion export industry, powered by film and television. Yet LA does not just make films, it makes things. Close to 60% of your exports comes from the manufacturing sector, and you have over 106,000 direct export manufacturing jobs. In Torrance, southwest of downtown, we find Luminate, a small manufacturer of advanced lighting products that are used in a broad range of applications. Luminate's production center houses some of the world's most advanced equipment for R&D, engineering, and the manufacturing of optics, and they are growing because they are selling abroad. In the last 2 years, their exports have grown 68%. Just to the south of Luminate is Pelican Products, where we visited yesterday, a firm that produces high-performance protective cases and advanced portable lighting equipment used by law enforcement, defense, aerospace, and the entertainment industry. Exports make up 35% of Pelican's total business, and the firm sells its products to over 100 countries. And as with Luminate, Pelican has experienced significant export growth in the past few years. Now, Pelican is partnering with the University of Southern California's Center for International Business Education and Research to help determine where to locate distribution centers in Asia. And additionally, the business schools at USC and UCLA have collaborated with your Chamber of Commerce to create the Export Champions Program, which will provide small firms the opportunity to partner with MBA students to develop growth-oriented export business plans. USC and UCLA are part of a larger regional group, the Los Angeles Regional Export Council, which was formed last November to assist LA firms that want to begin or expand exporting. The council is a region-wide collaboration between Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa at City Hall, the LA Chamber of Commerce, and others such as the Port of LA, LA World Airports, and regional business associations. And the ports of LA and Long Beach, as Peter was saying, play particularly critical roles in the movement of goods produced in LA to markets throughout the world, especially to Asia. Taken together, these two ports form the busiest complex in the Western Hemisphere and the 6th busiest port complex in the world. The LA story reveals why cities and metros power the American economy. Hyperlinked networks of private firms, universities, and public and nonprofit institutions that fertilize ideas, extend innovation, train workers, enhance competitiveness, and collaborate to compete for economic growth for the entire region. So that leads to our final point, namely that metros are driving innovation in practice, in policy, in the formation of global trade links. This is a major structural shift in our country. Setting a strong and stewarding a strong export economy has traditionally been almost the exclusive focus of the federal government, given its powers over trade, taxes, currency, investments in innovation, human capital, infrastructure, and export promotion and finance. Yet with partisan gridlock, even the easy stuff has become extraordinarily difficult in Washington. In this polarized environment, metros, already the engines of the national economy, are doing double duty and helping set a pro-trade platform for an export nation. 3 things are happening. First, metros are innovating locally with export plans that exploit their distinctive competitive advantages in the global economy. Over the past year, Brookings has worked closely with leaders in Los Angeles and 3 other metros, Portland, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Syracuse, to invent and pilot actionable export plans. And we've done this in close partnership with the International Trade Administration, U.S. Commercial Services, SBA, and the Exim Bank. The elements of export planning and action are fairly simple and straightforward. Each metro does a market assessment of their unique export profile and potential, what goods and services they trade, which nations they trade with, where trade trends are likely to head given market dynamics here and abroad. Armed with that information, metros then set exporting goals and objectives that build on their distinct advantages, devise strategies to meet their goals, and establish metrics to gauge performance. All those efforts are undertaken by a consortium of corporate, government, university, and civic institutions that cut across jurisdictions, sectors, and disciplines and collaborate to compete globally. Now, your plan is distinctive in multiple respects. As I mentioned before, you've created this new Los Angeles Regional Export Council to identify and proactively support export-ready firms in your leading sectors. And your plan is smartly focused, targeted on boosting exports in 12 industries, including aerospace, computers, pharmaceuticals, professional services, and obviously film and television. These export plans are not an anomaly. In fact, they're the beginning of a new wave of local and metropolitan economic development. Several months ago, Mayor Villaraigosa, in his capacity as head of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, put out an export challenge to America's cities and metros. Design strategies that build from your special export strengths. This is bottom-up economy shaping of the first order. Now, having innovated at home, metros now have the legitimacy to advocate nationally for federal and state policies and practice that boost their exports. What do they want? On one level, they want the federal government and the states to set a strong platform for export growth generally. At the same time, they want federal and state policies to be nimble enough to align specifically with the distinctive visions and strategies of disparate metros. Now, your metros now have a partner at the state level with the governor's new Office of Business and Economic Development. And the first order of business, create a California presence in China, which you've done in Shanghai and Beijing. This is a new day and a new attitude in California, frankly. But you've got a lot of work to do. Other states have been more aggressive in export promotion and are working more closely with their metro engines. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has a Center for Trade Development with 22 foreign trade offices located across the world. 2010, it assisted 1,350 companies, generating close to $500 million in new export sales. Closer to home, Washington State has a new export initiative that helps clusters of firms build their export capacity. Their goal, increase the number of exporters in that state by 30% over the next 5 years. And beyond those platform-setting efforts, Minnesota is working to align its resources and policies to the distinct export plan of Minneapolis-St. Paul. Incredibly, the State Trade Office was a lead organization in the Metro Export Initiative. Now, with partisan gridlock, the federal lift will be heavier than the states. Assume little happens this year. Maybe we reauthorize the Ex-Im Bank, hopefully, and possibly we get a short-term national transportation bill out of Washington. But when this election is over, U.S. metros should demand real action. A new round of trade agreements that open up foreign markets to U.S. goods and services. Fierce protection of intellectual property rights of American businesses around the world. And a true national freight strategy that modernizes air, rail, sea, and land hubs and corridors. And one other thing, metros should have a seat at the table, should play an enormous role in the streamlining of federal trade agencies and services. President Obama has proposed consolidating 6 agencies involved in trade activities. The U.S. Department of Commerce's core business and trade functions, SBA, Office of the U.S. Trade Rep, Ex-Im Bank, and OPIC. Yet consolidation would be a failure if it just moved agency boxes around in Washington, D.C. The key to success is to integrate activities on the ground so that local reps of these federal agencies operate as a unified team with metropolitan organizations. One set of export objectives, one set of performance metrics, and a clear system of referring business clients and sharing information. There's one more piece to this export puzzle. Beyond innovating locally and advocating nationally, U.S. metros are starting to network globally, creating and stewarding close relationships with trading partners in both mature economies and the rising nations. Now, strong connections already exist. Metros with concentration in financial services like New York are forming tight, interlocking networks with similarly focused metros around the world. Metros with concentrations in advanced manufacturing like Detroit are similarly linking with metros in both developed and rising nations. And port metros like Los Angeles are making key connections with the world's air, rail, and sea hubs. These networks obviously start with firms and ports that do business with each other. But over time, they extend to the supporting institutions, governments, universities, business associations that provide service for companies at the leading edge of metro economies. In many respects, these 21st century networks are not new. They hearken back to the way the global economy evolved before the rise of nation states, when historical trade routes flowed through cities and deep trading relationships were forged between cities. Between the dawn of the Common Era and the 15th century, a flourishing Silk Road connected cities in East, South, and Western Asia with their counterparts in the Mediterranean and European world as well as parts of North and East Africa. Each city had distinctive concentrations and specialties. Cities in China traded silk, teas, and porcelain. Cities in India traded spices, ivory, textiles, and pepper. Cities in the Roman Empire exported gold, silver, glassware, wine, carpets, and jewels. You get the lesson. Like today, the city economies of the ancient and medieval worlds were distinct economies, and places grew and they flourished as they built on their special strengths and their distinctive locations. So as we begin the Global Cities Initiative, let me end with this tantalizing prospect. A new Silk Road is emerging as we enter what is clearly an urban age and a metropolitan century. Cities and metros are not only the economic engines of nations, they are the spatial backbone of global trade and exchange. In a world where people and societies live, operate, communicate, engage through networks, the new Silk Road is emerging as a super network of trading cities and metros, economically collaborative and globally fluent. For the United States, this new Silk Road is a path back to shared prosperity, sane and sensible growth that works for companies, cities, and consumers. For the world, it's a path towards reducing poverty and generating wealth. Let us build this, let us nurture it, let us extend it to all corners of the earth. Thank you very much.